Not if something goes wrong. If everything goes exactly as the bank intended, that is not a penalty, not a late fee, not the result of a missed payment. That is the minimum payment trap running exactly as designed. Here's what most people don't know. The number labeled minimum payment on your statement was not calculated for your benefit. It was calculated using a formula that determines the lowest amount your bank will accept while maximizing the total interest it collects over time. The credit card industry's term for this design is the revolving credit amortization overlay, an underwriting framework calibrated to keep your payment just above the break-even threshold, but only barely. Most cardholders have never heard that term. That's not accidental. What you're going to understand in this video is the actual mechanics, why $3,500 becomes $7,300, how long it takes, and what the numbers look like at every stage. By the end, you'll know exactly how this formula operates and what specific action changes it before your next statement closes. There's also a second number buried inside this system, a threshold most cardholders have never seen. That determines whether your minimum payment can retire your debt or whether your balance quietly grows despite every payment you make. That number is coming in a few minutes. Let me walk through how the formula actually works. Because once you see the structure, you won't look at a statement the same way. Every revolving credit account in the United States uses some version of the same calculation. The minimum payment is set at whichever is greater, a fixed floor, usually 25 or 35, or a percentage of your current outstanding balance. Most major issuers set that percentage at 2%. Here's what that means in practice. You have $3,500 on a card. 2% of $3,500 is $70. That's your first minimum payment. You pay it. So how much did your balance drop? 2.73. You paid $70. Your balance dropped by 2.73. How? At 22% APR, the monthly interest rate is 1.83%. On $3,500, that's $64 on 17 in interest charges for the month. Your $70 payment covers that $64.17 first. The remaining $5.83, what's left after interest is served, is applied to principal. That is the mechanic. Your payment doesn't go toward what you owe first. It goes toward what the bank earned that month. Principal gets whatever's left. What this means for you right now. In month 1, you paid $70 and moved your balance by $5.83. Not $70. $5.83. Month 2, balance $3,494.17. Interest $64.12. Minimum $69.88. Principal paid $5.76. The minimum dropped 12 cents. Principal paid dropped 7 cents. Every month, the bank recalculates your minimum as a percentage of your slightly lower balance. Every month, both numbers drift fractionally downward. The payment feels smaller, more manageable. That feeling is the point. I ran this calculation on my own accounts once, a few years back. What I got back still bothers me. The credit industry has an internal classification for borrowers who follow this pattern over time. The reason code attached to their account profile reads persistent minimum payment pattern. That's not a risk flag. That's a revenue classification. These accounts generate 3 to 4 times more interest revenue than accounts paid in full each cycle. That is not speculation. It's the arithmetic of compound interest on a declining revolving balance. The debt service ratio embedded in your minimum payment was calibrated to a specific outcome, maximize interest revenue per account, while keeping the balance technically declining at the slowest rate the regulatory framework permits. You are most valuable to the issuer when you're doing exactly what the statement suggests. Year 1 by the numbers. 12 months of minimum payments on $3,500 at 22% APR produces roughly $820 in total payments from you. Your balance declines by approximately $68. You paid $820. Your debt moved by $68. The remaining $752 was interest revenue. That ratio, $820 paid, $68 of actual progress, isn't a rounding error. It's the formula at design specification. Here's where the structure gets worse. As your balance slowly declines, the minimum payment declines with it. Every month. The bank presents this as flexibility. Your obligation is shrinking. You have breathing room. That's the framework.
What's actually happening? The interest to principal ratio is deteriorating, not improving. Month 24, balance around 3,366. Minimum payment approximately 67. Of that 67, roughly $61 goes to interest. $6 to principal. Month 36, balance near 3,327. Minimum 64. Interest $59. Principal 5. Month by month, the payment falls and the fraction consumed by interest worsens. The spiral tightens. Over years, there's a number embedded inside the minimum payment formula that separates debt you can actually retire from debt that won't move regardless of how faithfully you pay it. It's called the break-even interest threshold. At 22% APR, the monthly interest rate is 1.83%. For any fraction of your payment to reach principal, your minimum payment percentage must exceed 1.83%. Most cards set minimums at 2%. The buffer is 0.72%. On $3,500, that's $5,095 per month in actual forward progress. $5,195. 1 percentage point difference in minimum payment rate on a $3,500 balance is the difference between clearing that debt in 4 years and still carrying it past 10. Now here's the compound calculation, the math that makes this completely concrete. 96 months, 2% minimum, 22% APR, $3,500 opening balance. Month 1, 64.17 interest, $5,083 principal. Month 12, 63.42 interest, $5,017 principal. Month 36, 59.11 interest, $12,089 principal. Month 72, 42.66 interest, $13,087 principal. Month 84, 37.47 interest, $19,090 principal. Month 96, 22 interest, $47.15 principal. 38,735. Total interest, $3,835. That $3,835 is 109% of your original $3,500 balance. You paid more in interest alone than you originally charged to the card. In 8 years, this is the amount that you never reach. The interest charged each month is calculated on your average daily balance, not your statement balance. Once you accumulate your daily balance, the bonus period for new purposes disappears. Every dollar you charge starts accumulating interest from the day it peaks. At 22% APR, the daily periodic rate is 0.0633%. On $3,500, that's $2,011 per day, $63.30 per month. Not a minimum charge. The daily accumulation. One month will include 73 days compounding on a slowly declining balance to make it $3,135 in interest on $3,500 in principal. That's the exact arithmetic behind the $8,700 scenario. At the midpoint of that scenario, month 48, your running payment total is already reached $4,155. The remaining balance still sits at $3,245. You've paid almost exactly the original principal and still owe more than you started with. Month 60, $3,276 paid, $3,067 remaining. The compound formula is architecturally designed so that meaningful balance reduction doesn't arrive until the final 18 months of the repayment window. Everything before that is a mere over-interest extraction. Progress comes light and slow to catch only after the maximum has been collected. What I'm about to show you in the next 90 seconds of the book must be unable. Don't stop here. This is the one that changes what you do next.
Banks don't design minimum payments to harm you. They design them to optimize revenue per account. Those two objectives aren't in conflict. They're the same goal served by the same calculation. Your confusion about how the formula operates is not a side effect of the system. It's a structural feature of it. The disclosure exists. The explanation of its consequence to you over time does not. What does this mean for you right now? Every month you pay only the minimum, you're extending your payoff by a calculable number of weeks on a curve your issuer modeled before the account was open. It's not personal, it's arithmetic, and arithmetic can be interrupted. Let's put the full number on this. $7,735 paid over 96 months. Subtract the $3,500 original balance. That's $3,835 in interest on money you'd already spent. Roughly $40 per month for 8 years of on-time payments on a balance you were faithfully servicing the entire time. But that's not the full cost. Here's the third figure: $40 per month for 96 months redirected. If that amount had gone into a broad index fund, returning the S&P 500's historical average over any comparable 8-year window, it would have grown to approximately $5,600. The real cost of minimum payments on $3,500 isn't $3,035. It's $3,835 in interest paid plus $5,600 in compound investment growth that didn't happen. Over $9,400 in combined wealth impact from a single $3,500 balance. That is the number that changes this from credit cards are expensive to something with real weight. That $9,400 didn't leave your account in a single visible transaction. It left in $40 monthly increments across 96 months, small enough to register as background noise, large enough to matter enormously over time. The formula was calibrated precisely to extract at that scale, below the threshold of conspicuous loss, consistent enough to accumulate. Banks don't need to take dramatically from any one customer when the arithmetic does the work quietly and at volume across millions of accounts. Now here's what closes this completely. The break-even interest threshold isn't just a calculation detail, it's a literal dividing line. On one side, debt that declines when you make minimum payments. On the other, debt that grows when you make minimum payments, even when you never miss one. And more accounts than most people realize operate at or below that line. Cards issued to borrowers in lower FICO score tiers and many retail store cards carry APRs above 29%. At 29% APR, the monthly interest rate is 2.42%. If that card's minimum payment is set at 2% of balance, which many are, your minimum payment cannot pay down the debt. The balance increases every single month, even when you pay on time, in full, as instructed. This isn't a penalty rate triggered by missing a payment. It's a card where the minimum payment formula was set below the threshold at which positive progress is mathematically possible. The adverse action notice you'd receive if denied for credit doesn't flag this condition for an existing account. The cardholder agreement discloses the formula. It does not explain what that formula means for your balance over time. The regulatory term for the floor governing all of this, compliance floor. Issuers must set minimum payments high enough that the balance eventually reaches zero. The regulation permits payoff timelines of up to 35 to 50 years at the lowest permissible minimums. That boundary, the compliance floor, is what was placed on your statement as your payment. What does this mean for your accounts specifically? Find your highest APR card. Divide the APR by 12. Multiply by your current balance. That's your monthly interest charge in dollars. Compare it to your minimum payment. If the gap is less than 2% of your balance, you're barely moving. If your minimum payment percentage is lower than your monthly interest rate, your balance is growing when you pay. You need to know which side of that line you're on. Two things belong in the same space here. Anger at a system that places the compliance floor on your statement without translating its consequence into plain language. And something more useful, clarity. Understanding exactly how the formula works is what breaks it. Here's exactly what to do. Specific steps. This week, step 1. Calculate your monthly interest charge today. Open your credit card account online. Find your current balance and your APR. Divide the APR by 12. That's your monthly interest rate. Multiply it by your current balance. That's your monthly interest charge in dollars. If your minimum payment is less than $15 above that number, your balance is barely moving. You need a different amount. Step 2. Set a fixed monthly payment and hold it there regardless of what your balance does. Don't let it decline as the balance drops. If your balance is $3,500, a fixed payment of $175 per month, 5% held constant, pays off the debt in approximately 23 months at 22% APR. Total interest around $520. Same balance, same rate, same card, different payment discipline. The difference is $3,315 in interest not paid and 73 months of your time returned. Step 3. If $175 isn't where you can start, even $50 above the minimum changes the math. $70 minimum plus $50 is $120 per month. At $120 on $3,500 at 22% APR, the balance clears in about 38 months. Total interest, roughly $1,360. That's 2,670 files less than minimums. 3 years faster, from $50 a month. Step 4. Never let the bank reduce your payment. When the balance drops and the automatic minimum falls from $70 to $65 to $58, keep paying what you were paying before. The bank will present a lower number. That number is not a courtesy. It is the formula continuing its extraction. Ignore it. Step 5. Find the statement closing date on every card where you carry a balance, not the due date, the closing date labeled statement date or statement closing date in your account settings. That's when your balance gets reported to the credit bureaus. Paying down your balance before that date reduces your reported credit utilization ratio and improves your FICO score at the exact same time you're reducing your debt. Same money, one payment, two outcomes. I used to think the minimum payment was a safety net, something you fell back on and still came out okay. It took me too long to understand it's the opposite. It's not a floor designed for your protection. It's the floor designed for the bank's margin. That realization cost me real money before it landed. What financial rule were you taught growing up by a parent, at school, from anyone, that you later discovered was backward or just wrong? Drop it below. I read every comment in this section. These answers are always the most honest I see anywhere. If this gave you something real you didn't have before, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. Next, I'm breaking down how credit card interest is actually calculated on a daily basis, because the APR on your statement is not the rate that charges you. The daily periodic rate is. The gap between those two numbers is costing people more than they realize, and it connects directly to what we covered today. The math is going to be more surprising than this was. One final thing, and it matters if you're carrying balances on more than one card. The sequence in which you attack multiple balances determines your total interest paid. The optimal approach is the avalanche method: minimum payments on every card, every extra dollar toward the highest APR card first. Not the smallest balance, the highest rate. Because the minimum payment formula is most destructive on your highest APR account. That's where the interest to principal ratio is worst, and the break-even threshold is most threatening. Eliminating it first reduces total interest paid more than any other sequence. Example, 3 cards at 24%, APR 21% and 18%. Every extra dollar to the 24% card until it's cleared, then 21%, then 18%. Compared to targeting the smallest balance first, this saves between 8 and 15% of total interest across all 3 accounts. On $10,000 combined, that's $800 to $1,500 saved. From sequence alone, no extra money required. Start where the formula hurts you most. Clear that account. Move down the rate ladder. That's the full picture. Now you have the arithmetic. Use it.